and I'll just kind of point it in the right direction. So you got tax relief top one.
We have choice. We don't do nothing here anyway. I don't know why we're here. She's sitting down over here.
Can you see it okay? Can you see it okay? And that'll just kind of guide you through. You can hit each one.
Who'd you bring with you today?
Joe's sick.
Really?
Yeah.
What the heck, man?
Interesting.
Like food sick?
I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of coming out right now.
Clark, I just got your text.
I'm just trying to help represent.
I appreciate you.
No, you're good. You're good, man.
I just realized I was on line level.
I wasn't sure who that belonged to. I thought it belonged to
We
me.
gotta hurry. We got like 20 minutes. Are the Democrats here yet?
No, they'll come in now.
I'll grab it and knock that over. You know that.
So very close.
You guys make me nervous.
You say that every single time.
Well, you
That is
do.
such
Want me to try to stash it back there?
Oh, yeah.
Nothing makes Mike nervous.
That's actually good. Takes a second. Oop. Perfect. Thank you.
I don't think anything makes you nervous, Mike. Except for maybe Janet.
Janet makes me nervous. We ready? You want me to say something, huh? Hey, it's been an amazing year. You know, we started off with some pretty good proposals from the good gentleman on the second floor, the governor, and I think we made them even better. We out of over $400 million in tax relief this year. We started out thinking we were only going to be able to get to $100 million. Over $400 million. We touched income tax. We touched property tax. We touched sales tax. We did a good job of adjusting all of those in a downward trend, which is good for the state of Idaho. We had the stuff we talked about in the first press conference at the start of the session, and we touched on every one of those, from school choice, Medicaid reform, issues with illegal immigration, and election reform and security. We've moved the ball in a lot of long ways in the direction of accomplishing each one of those goals. I think this session will probably be known most for, though, what we did in regard to tax relief. We also did some amazing things with budgets, though. Overall budget growth is going to be around 6.7%, which is pretty amazing when you realize that the maintenance budgets were at 5% across the board. So we did a really good job of keeping the budgets in line also and keeping the growth of government down. So Idaho, we're very blessed. Things are moving in the right direction, and working together with our governor and the counterparts across the way, we were able to accomplish some really good goals. I think since we're in a hurry, the best thing for us to do is probably answer your questions quick, because we need to get back on the floor. We'd like to be done today. That's our goal. So with that, does anybody have any questions or any concerns, anything they can talk about? Good, we can leave.
Hey, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to ask about the budget process for JFAC. There's disagreement between the House and the Senate leadership and co-chairs. Do you anticipate any changes to JFAC? Right now, it's kind of difficult to tell what it takes to get a motion out of JFAC to the floor. And I just wanted to see if providing clarity or transparency or any changes to that process was a priority for leadership in the interim.
In the interim, we'll do some discussion there, but quite frankly, I don't think we really have a problem there. If you look at what happens this year, you know, disagreement is a good thing. The hard part for the Appropriations and Finance Committee is in the past they've tried to combine their votes, and by splitting their votes, you have to have both committees get a majority, not just one. And that's been a learning curve. But no, I think we did a good job. I agree there's some hiccups once in a while, but that's the same in any other committee. I think they're doing a good job, and we will visit with the co-chairs to see if there's some things that we can help with in leadership to make it go smoother next year. But overall, I'm not worried about it. I like the contention because it makes for better budgets.
Are you okay with the two different sets of standards, though, for the House members on JFAC versus the Senate standards? Do you think that that provides the kind of clarity and transparency for the public that we need?
I think the public needs to understand that they're two separate committees. And for a motion to come out of that committee, they need the majority of both committees, not the majority of one picking up a few on the others. And I think that's the biggest discrepancy between the House and the Senate. And we'll work on a path forward there. But I still firmly believe and will continue to make sure that those committees vote separately and that they're counted separately, so we don't have one side or the other having more control over the process. Anything else?
Where do we stand?
Okay. Launch. You all passed a bill to revamp launch. It didn't get taken up in the Senate. Are you concerned about where launch stands now in that a lot of the money it's going to four-year schools that the legislature cut budgets on.
My concern with launch has always been it was sold as a way to get, career-ready job, boom, go in, short-term, in and out. It was supposed to be more in line with our community colleges where you could go in and learn how to be a welder, or a truck driver, or name it. Launch got expanded into where, like you say, a lot of it went into the four-year schools. The bill that we passed would have brought that back to where we thought it would be when it was originally sold to the legislature. I had hoped that we had a path forward on that. The other concern with launch is that it's being controlled by a group of unelected officials, and there are 37 members of the Workforce Development Council. I still firmly believe that elected officials ought to be involved. You're talking about spending, what, $80 to $100 million? There need to be some involvement from elected officials. So we didn't get that one across the line this year, but I think that there's probably more support to do that. The vote on the House was a good vote, if you saw. I thought we had a path forward that didn't work out so well, but we'll try it again next year. I don't think that issue will go away. And hopefully next year we'll start a little earlier and have a resolution sooner, than we don't end up where we are now at the end of the session and can't push it forward.
Where do we stand with the Idaho Parental Rights Act since Senator Hampton introduced a little bit of a tweak and passed the Senate, hung out in the House, and
Well, we just barely got that the other day, and the problem you have with that bill is there's so many people wanting more amendments to the bill, and there's not a consensus with the parties. I had hoped we'd be able to fix that this year. I visited with Pro Tem Anthony about that, but there's still not an agreement. And when you have that many parties trying to tweak it different ways, that's the problem with it. So we need a little bit more time for everybody to get in a room and agree to those amendments. I've got several of them on my desk, but we just didn't have a path forward where there was consensus. I'm sure you'll see that get resolved next year. I think that by getting that bill to the House, that they got it most of the way, and now more of the parties are involved. So we'll find a solution.
what other priorities were left on the table this year?
I think the one, not very much. I think really we can, there's a few things. There's always a few things that come back the next year, but we touched all the main ones that were in there. In fact, the caucus chair can give you a list of all the different bills that we passed dealing with all of our priorities, and I hope he does that before he leaves. But no, we did a really good job this year. It was a good year for Idaho. It was a good year for the legislature. It was quite amazing. There's a few things like that, but for the most part, it was a great year.
We talked about tax cuts a lot. Was the Idaho child tax credit something on your radar at all? 63-3029 Idaho Code, it sunsets on January 1st. Is that something that was
Somebody brought that to my attention and wasn't even brought up after that. We think we were more focused on tax relief for everybody with the income that covered everybody, the property that covered everybody, and the schools, and the sales tax that covered everybody. So we were more focused on those areas that touched everybody. So I saw it, but nobody brought it up, so we just wasn't addressed.
I thought I saw a head shake from the majority leader. Was that something that was on your radar at all this year?
No, I mean, we knew about it. It was coming up, but we had other priorities, as the speaker mentioned. That we were going to address those big issues that we've been hearing from our constituents and from the people of Idaho to address. They want property tax relief and they want tax relief, and that's what we provided for them.
Thanks.
Anything else? Yeah.
A number of bills this year went through some pretty substantial revisions. The Medical Freedom Bill, I think at least 5 sets of amendments. Do you think enough thought and care is being put into bills before they're introduced?
That's the process, right? The process is you introduce something and then everybody looks at it, and the more they look at it, they find the problems. Hence the reason when we talked about the appropriation committee, the more discussion, the more back and forth you end up with better bills. That's why you see the amendments. So no, I'm not worried about that. That's the process, and I think it makes for better legislation. I really do. Get more people's eyes, get more conversation, get better legislation.
I believe that one of Representative Mickelson's transparency bills, HB 378, it looks like it's going to die on the amending order in the Senate. Can you talk about why these bills didn't appear to be a legislative priority?
Well, they were a priority on the House. That's why it's sitting in the Senate. You would have to ask the Pro Tem about that one. I was supportive of that bill. I think you would have to ask them. And everybody has a different reason, and I don't know what they were, so I can't really speak for the Senate on that.
One of your priorities was you're working with Secretary McGrain on campaign finance and trying to rework reporting laws. Where do you think, I mean, that's a pretty big job. Where do you think that stands at this point, and what path forward do you see with that?
Yeah, we got part of it done, as you know, but we didn't get it all. We got the lobbying side done, but we didn't get the candidate side done. We've got a bill that I think has a majority consensus, but there's still some concerns, so there'll be some tweaks. We have time to get that done the first of the next session. It's not going to go away. It needs addressed. We did a lot of work though as we consolidated the lobbying in one group and the candidates in another to make it easier for candidates and lobbyists as they deal with running or lobbying. So it'll be back next year. I think if you look at Senate bill, I think it's 1212. I think that gives you the blueprint of where we'll start. And I think that there's just a couple more little tweaks, and I think we get it out of here. It just took so long toward the end of the session that it makes it hard to get done now. And it's one of those bills that you're talking about that needs more eyes on it, but we'll get it done.
Was one of the major points of debate like that trigger provision that was proposed where if you get so many expenditures in opposition to you in a race, then you can increase the amount of individual contributions? Is that something that's still being worked out?
Yeah, that was talk that was brought there. Other states have that provision, so there's still discussions on that. And the other discussion is what to make the minimum be. I mean, the proposal in Senate Bill 1212, I believe, is $1,500. I think there's a consensus that you ought to be at least at inflation, which would put you closer to $2,500 for when the $1,000 cap was put in there. The other concern and why the trigger was brought up is because right now with all the out-of-state money that's coming in here, they bring in hundreds of millions of dollars and a candidate's got a cap and they don't. The PACs have no caps. And you saw that in the last election where you saw unheard of amounts of out-of-state money poured into Idaho. And one of our concerns is is to find out where that money's coming from, who's sending in here and what they're doing with it, hence the two laws. But I also feel that on the other side, on the candidate side, we gotta be careful that we don't tie their hands so they can compete with them. Hence the trigger conversation, and conversations of maybe moving that cap up a little bit.
House Majority Leadership voted to reject quite a few enhancement budgets this year. Can you speak to why they did that?
Because we all have on our own votes, and in those budgets we had concerns about them, depending what the budget was. Each one was different. And you saw some of the budgets that were returned to committee that came back smaller, and some of the concerns were addressed in those. And that's the process, right? We don't agree 100%. And this year the budgets are way better than they've been in the past. We've done a way better job of keeping spending under control, and we'll continue to do that. But you know, each of us have our own concerns with different budgets, hence the different votes. Yeah.
House Bill 93 has a $50 million cap for this year. What are the odds we see a bill next year to lift that cap?
Well, you remember the bill doesn't really kick in until next year, but I think if they use that amount, there'll be a bill to expand that. But it's a new program, right? You saw that we gave the tax commission the employees necessary to go in there and get that program set up. And once that gets set up and going, we'll have a better idea. But our intention is, if the need's there, to expand the amount of money that's put there to take care of those needs. But time will tell because it's new, right? We just don't know. And I think there's more than enough right now to meet the needs that are there. But hopefully if there's more needs, we'll put more money in.
What's the benchmark for you? This many people are on the waiting list, then we need to expand it next year. Do you have a number in mind?
Don't have a number because we really don't know how many are going to apply yet. We just don't know what the program is. So it's like asking me something. I really can't answer that till we see how it's implemented and how many people apply and what the needs are. And when we see that, then we can make that decision. But I have no problem, and I don't think any of us on this leadership team do, as expanding the amount of money there if there's a need. But again, you won't know for a couple of years as the program gets started. Anything else? Yeah.
I have a basic process question.
Oh, that's scary.
Some of us were expecting this press conference to happen after signing die, so curious why.
So were we.
Curious why now?
We have time. There's only one more bill, well, two more bills on the House, and we're done. And then we'll sit around and wait to see what happens. If the governor signs all the bills, we can sign die today. If he doesn't or vetoes any, then we'll probably hear for another 5 days at least. So we thought that while we were having this time of year, the bills have to go through a process. And so while that process was going on, we thought we'd take 20 or 30 minutes and run up here and visit with you. We'll go back down and finish those two bills, send them to the Senate, and they have to go back and forth. We have to sign, the speaker has to sign, they have to sign, we read them back and forth, send them to the governor, he brings them up. So there's a process that needs to happen. And we had a window and thought it would be advantageous to all of you and to us to visit about what was going on. Yeah.
Representative Tanner, speaking of the medical freedom bill, I think the good gentleman from 13 said there was an ironclad agreement with House and Senate leaders plus the governor's office. Is that your understanding as well, that if it passes as is, that he'll sign it?
Yeah, I think as of we stand right now, we've worked with his staff as well as the bill sponsor from the Senate on the amendments that just were taken on the House floor. So at this point in time, I don't see a problem with it at all. I think everybody's in agreement, and I think the issues are resolved.
Thank you.
And that's where we're headed next. Hopefully, that's what's going on now. Any other questions? Yeah.
The legislature didn't take up bills this year to amend the library materials law or abortion laws, and you had lawsuits and warnings that these laws aren't working as you intended. Can you speak to the legislature's stance to hold off and wait on these lawsuits to resolve?
Well, some of those cases you have to wait to see how the lawsuits are resolved so we know if there really is a problem. And there's really not a concern from legislators, so that's why they didn't bring a bill forward, I would assume. So until we see, I guess, how those lawsuits proceed and what the real issues are, things will stay status quo. Anything else? Yeah.
We didn't see much movement on the school funding formula this year. Superintendent had a bill that didn't go anywhere in the House. Can you just speak to what you would like to see changed in the school funding formula? And can we see those changes come up next year?
I think that you saw 3 different school funding formula ideas sitting around out there, right? And there wasn't consensus on any of them. And I'm hoping that by next year, the different groups can get together and come up with a solution going forward, because it needs to be resolved. We all know that, but it needs to be resolved in a way where we don't have the winners and the losers in the fight, because all the ones I saw so far, there was still winners and losers. So hopefully those different camps can get together and come up with something. I know it's a priority. I know that when those 3 bills came up and the individuals that brought them, we sat in my office and all of us at different times and talked about it. So we know it needs fixed, and I know they're working on a solution there. But that's kind of a hard one to delve into because there's so many moving parts, and that's why it's taking so long to resolve. We are doing a lot, though, with the tax relief in regards to the facilities. You saw another $50 million stumped into the facilities this year. We're also doing a good job. We put out the $50 million for rural grants for those rural schools. That's a good thing. So we made a lot of movement on the other side on facilities too. And I know that it's a goal of this House leadership team by the time we're gone here, whoever knows when, to have it so that we can get the majority of the funding costs for buildings put back on the state instead of on the local property taxpayers as we try to relieve the burden on the property taxpayers.
Is that the priority going forward, or would it be more work on the income tax to get it to 5 or below? All of the above.
That's why we did what we did this year, touch all of them. I think you keep moving a little bit along each one and get going. We've got to be more competitive on the income tax side. A lot of states are ending their income tax. Montana, I think, is going to be under 5 this year with no sales tax. Idaho's still at 5.3. We've got a long ways to go to be competitive on that side. And on the other side, it's the property tax side. And the more we can pump into that side to alleviate the burden on the property taxpayers, the better off they all are. And remember, the property tax, when you deal with the school, deals with all property taxpayers. We're not picking one group or another, which I think is beneficial too. And it helps our businesses and our homeowners, so it's fair. Anything else?
Quickly, do you think the DEI issue is resolved at this point in the budget and policy?
I hope so. But you saw the games that were played the last couple of years. Remember, we've passed bills on DEI for the last, 3 years or so, Kevin? It's been quite a bit. I hope that this drives a nail in it and we're done with it, but I'm not going to say that it really does because we just won't know till we see what the universities do. I think that a message was sent with their budget. I think the bill sends a message. And I think that the public's made it clear that they're concerned about some of those issues. So hopefully, with what we've done this year, we've ended those concerns and that we can move away from that issue and it's resolved. But we'll have to wait and see. Time will tell. Yeah.
Hi, Representative Moyle. I noticed it says on there one of the goals, I think, is stopping illegal immigration. Obviously, I think, I'm forgetting the House bill number, but it was immediately blocked by a judge. How do you think that goal is playing out when the bill was immediately blocked as soon as it was signed?
The judge blocked it for 2 weeks, I believe. You want to answer that?
Sure.
You're on this one.
So that's House Bill 83. We were anticipating the ACLU was going to file it, and they did within 2 hours of getting signed by the governor. So I think that means we're right over the target. It's a good bill. It's constitutional, so we should be just fine.
Okay, so you think you're doing the right thing because the ACLU immediately signed?
I think that that's a very good sign that we're doing the right thing. And when I talked to the legal counsel in Texas, they said the exact same thing happened to them when they passed theirs. It's constitutional, and they said just anticipate this is going to happen, and it did. So, yeah.
Anything else? Well, we appreciate you coming today. We want you to know that's our goal, to keep Idaho, make it a better state, make it better than what it already is. It's the best state in the nation. We're all very blessed to be in this state. That's why everybody's coming here. We want to make sure that we keep it that way, and we appreciate what you do, keeping the word out about what we're doing too. So stay in touch, let us know how we can help you and any other questions you have. And with that, we're going to go do some bills on the floor. Thank you.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thank you guys.
I started songs already.
What's the black jacket wearing? Is that your going on TV jacket?
Yeah, I can wear my party jacket.
No, why not?
How do we?
Nope, that stays.
Yeah.
Nope,
You really
nope,
want?
it
We can
stays.
stand up here
It
and tell
stays.
you all about what Idaho House Republicans do.
Press conference, you can leave that.
Did you want us to leave this one too here?
I'm happy to tell them all about the